Tom, thanks so much for joining me on the Slice of Construction podcast. How are you today?
Good, Jared. Thanks for having me.
Excited to have you. This is your first time coming on the podcast.
First time.
So, what I usually like to do when we have someone on for the first time is just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your company, and then we'll just dive into our conversational chat here.
Sounds like a plan. Hey, everybody. My name is Tom Deane, and I'm the co-founder and CEO at a company called ProjectMark. Uh, I am born and raised in Dublin, Ireland. You probably picked up the accent already, Jared. I spent a lot of my career in the construction industry. So I grew up in a family in construction. Worked on building sites as a teenager. I really only had one career path. Wasn't smart enough to be an architect. That's initially what I wanted to be. And studied construction management in a place called Limerick, Ireland. Was always inspired to move to the United States and work on some, amazing projects. And about 24 hours after I finished my exams, myself and a few buddies took a one-way ticket to Los Angeles. 1,500 bucks in the account, and that was that. That was 15 years ago. So after landing in LA, spent about seven to 8 years in the construction industry over here. I always wanted to work on amazing work, and we were lucky enough to work on some high-rise projects, sort of east and west coast. I was involved in a lot of the pre-construction sort of cost and risk management side of construction. And that took me up to San Francisco, where I reconnected with my co-founder, who was my college roommate from Limerick. We know each other 18 years. He invited us to bid on a project, and we ended up winning that work. Myself and Noel worked together on that project for a few years. And that's where we've seen the sort of tailwind of technology that was starting to happen. You've got PlanGrid as an example, the building connecteds back in the day. These were game-changing solutions, and we knew we were problem solvers, and we had that sort of energy to go and start something. And that's where the beginning of ProjectMark had happened. We initially thought about business development and marketing being an incredibly important workflow in every construction company, and we started to think about more of a public-facing business development and marketing network rather than where we are today. And that's how it all started. Jump ship, burn the boat, as they say, and that was 4.5 years ago.
I love it. It's I love hearing the stories of, that's probably one of my favorite parts about doing this is I get to hear so many entrepreneurs' stories, and the common trait that always just stands out is that resilience and that just total belief in what you're doing, right? That it's going to work out and you're going to get to the point that you can kind of see in your head. What's what's something now that you wish you knew when you were just starting? Like if you had to narrow it down, I know there's probably a million things, right? But if you had to narrow it down to like one or two things, like what would have been super helpful to know now that you didn't when you were first starting?
I was just about to say, Jared, how long have you got? There's just so much learning. As you'd mentioned, it's all about resilience, right? And belief in the problem that you're going to solve, and the energy and the passion that you have for the space gets you through, the difficult times. But I think there's just so much, right? As a domain expert moving into technology, we had little knowledge around how to start a software company. We had little knowledge around fundraising. I think looking back, I think truly validating the pain of your customer and ensuring that the pain is big enough for you to go and solve, I think that would have saved us a lot of time in the early days. From a fundraising perspective, I think, with venture capital investors, not to discredit VC or investors, everybody wants to pick up data points and learn who's working on what, but that shouldn't enable you to go and communicate and start knocking on investor doors too early. And that was something that, not understanding the process, you want to make sure that, you're approaching investors at the right time. And there's a lot of great people that are investors that will tell you you're too early and things like that. But I think, strategy around fundraising and ensuring that you're spending enough time on the problem in the early days. I probably could have stayed in my job for another year. But, a part of it is ignorance is bliss at the same time. You don't want to overanalyze, you jump and ship and going after what you think you can solve for.
I did the same thing. Like at my first company, I decided to like leave probably 6 months earlier than I actually had to,
Yep.
and obviously missed out on like 6 months of additional earning and safety and things like that, right? But I don't regret it at all because it allowed me to spend all my time and learn probably at a much faster pace than I would have if I was just kind of going along slowly. So I totally
100%.
get that.
Yep.
Isn't it frustrating though when you look at like investors are great? There's lots of great investors. There's lots of bad investors.
Mm.
But you mentioned sometimes they'll tell you, okay, you're too early, or it was always frustrating to me how some people would be too early and others would be so far along. There
Yeah.
was no like whenever I tried to get that like give me that rubric, right, of like what is too early to you, but then
Mm-hmm.
you'd see them do a deal with someone that was super early because there was like a relationship. So it is kind of
Mm-hmm.
funny, right? Like
Yep.
just to those entrepreneurs out there that take the advice, like listen to these VC. Are we too early? Sure, but know that one's too early is another's like too late. Like, do you agree with that? Like, does it really depend on the investor?
Yeah, I think second time founders get the pass, right? And I truly understand why second time founders get the pass, because all the learnings that you learn from your first company, it completely de-risks the investment. In terms of relationship development, I think it just depends on the problem that you're solving, how big is the problem, how you can communicate that and articulate to investors, what your background is. Ultimately for 95% of startups, you're going to want to have traction. You're going to want to have customers really validating your product and being happy to communicate that your product is the best thing since sliced bread. You would likely want to have some experts invested in your product. These are all things that supported our story. But yeah, it's very easy to like look around your shoulder and look at the next fundraising announcement and try to keep up with the Joneses. But and I think that's just natural human behavior, right? But yeah, you just got to find your people as well. I think the right investors will come to you if you have a story and a problem that you truly believe in, that you can communicate, and you're seeing some great traction.
Yeah, and I think just to those entrepreneurs out there that are just getting going, even the best investors will admit they are wrong
Yeah.
a lot of the time, right? Like
Yeah.
I was looking at the hit rates of some of the top investors in the world, and they're in like that 5 to 9%
It's
like
crazy.
success rate. Um, so like it's very possible that they're wrong, and they'll admit that they can be wrong as well. So don't let that get you down.
One,
Um,
yeah, one thing to note there as well, Jared, like that's very easy. It's easily said as well. And in the early days, as an example, like you can be really affected by that rejection email. And what I would say to entrepreneurs out there, that's what investors' job is typically is sending the rejection emails on a daily basis. So you have to pick yourself up, dust your shoulders off and keep it driving. And that there is a yes around the corner.
it's sad though how over time you just get so like unaffected by any type of rejection. Like I don't know, did you ever watch Seinfeld?
I actually not watched Seinfeld, but yeah, I would love to
Well, there's a
love to hear
scene
the
where the girl
context.
breaks up
Yeah.
with the main character, Jerry, and she's like, "Listen, it's not working out. We need to break up." He goes, "Okay,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, I'll land on my feet. It works out
Yeah.
for me. I'll be fine."
Yeah.
And it's like that's what like rejection gets to you at a certain point where it's like you don't get the deal, you don't get the investor, something doesn't happen. It's like okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But in the early days, it can be like dark, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
that stinks.
it's it's tolerance of pain, right? Your tolerance of pain continues to build, and it's not just like investor rejection. It's early because every customer will come to you when the timing is right for them. Not everybody, especially in the construction industry, is an early innovator. There's just too much risk involved that I can totally understand why there's a pool of early folks that want to take the bet. But most people are busy executing projects, so even getting the early no's of logos that you know and trust, is is tough to get. But again, you just build on that tolerance and you just keep it going. That's truly my only my only advice is just to keep, if you truly believe, you want to have a great blend of stubbornness but being nimble and aware. So you can be incredibly stubborn on the wrong idea, which is something that had happened with us in the past. Not to say that we were stubborn, but we were on the wrong idea and we had to be nimble to move quick enough in order to create value quick enough. So it's, if you believe in what you're doing and you're aware of the data and the problem that you're solving and you have enough drive, you just got to keep it going.
Tom, I'd love to hear from your point of view where you see the state of construction today.
The state of construction today, it's just a really interesting time. I think, with the advancements in technology and the sort of tailwinds of technology adoption, is just an interesting time for companies to be able to leverage software. I think AI has been sort of the most impactful, sort of attention grabbing. Oftentimes, like the software that struggle with getting into the market, and oftentimes it's a longer period. But with AI, I feel like construction companies have a real eye on the advancements of that technology and having to adopt quite quickly on certain things because it truly will save a lot of time. So I think there's really interesting trends that are happening around technology, and over the course of the next 1 to 2 years, how advanced these construction companies will be with their technology stack. I have a real opinion on labor shortage. And that is obviously a common topic, considering the advancements in data centers and all this construction capital spend, and how are we going to source labor. I think there's two issues that the United States have. That there's a perception problem. So in Ireland, construction is celebrated, right? 50-60% of my network, 50-60% of my family are in construction. So it's on a pedestal where there's qualified skills trades folks, where I do think that's lost in the US, especially as a skills trades man or woman. I think there needs to be more education early on what a career that I can present to somebody, especially when you think of all the roles that AI is going to essentially take over. Secondly, I do think there's an immigration policy problem as well in the United States. When you think about, fortunate for the United States and unfortunate for the rest of the world, there's 100,000 workers that will move to the United States in the drop of a hat, that are qualified, that are willing to take advantage of that opportunity. And I think there is policy there that, if you think about what H-1B does with engineering talent and medical talent, and they bring in the most educated folks from all around the world to support these companies growing. I think there's something to be said around a similar program to bring in the highest quality trades folks to support. And that's more of a short-term problem. The long-term problem is the education piece, or the long-term solve is the education piece and potentially robots. But I think there's other ways that the labor shortage can be solved in much quicker fashion. So that's my rant on that.
Yeah, not just for construction. I'm critical of the school system of, it does a lot of good, but also not opening up the opportunities to learn about a bunch of different career paths. Not just learn about them. They should actually be able
Yeah.
to get hands on. Like, I think high school should be treated very much like, maybe even if for people that went to college, like first 2 years is your general additional information. Your last 2 years, you should be doing everything career focused, right? Helping you get prepared for what career you're going to go into.
Yep.
If you need to go to college, what should you be studying? If you find that you like a trade, you should start being able to, whether it's some basic apprenticeship or just like a 1 day on the job type deal. Um, I would love to see that. I don't think they'll ever do that. But now with AI, you can learn everything so much more quickly than ever before. So we shouldn't. I don't even know if you need 4 years of high school anymore. Like, you could probably learn everything you needed to in such a short period, and then spend the rest of the time getting kids prepared for their future, right?
It's fascinating. I feel like, yeah, it's just a fascinating time. I think folks in between the like 30 to 50 age group are almost like in a prime position with AI because they've seen and have worked in the industry or industries where it's sort of older school, right? AI didn't exist. And then, the more senior folks, are they willing to learn AI because they're sort of at the tailor end of the career. So I think, yeah, it's just interesting for folks coming out of college and the newer generation how their education roadmap is going to change. I totally agree.
Yeah, we'll see how that continues to play out. I hope it moves
Hopefully
a
for
lot
the better.
faster than people
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
yeah.
Tom, before we wrap up here, just would love to hear, what's next.
What's next for Project Mark? So we're a modern CRM system built specifically for the construction industry. Our whole mantra is making it easy for marketing, BD, and pre-con teams to collaborate on all things business development, project acquisition, and relationship management. What's really interesting with ourselves, we're seeing a huge trend in folks coming away from legacy systems, and this was something that we had seen ourselves. The frustration with just old school clunky systems and not amassing the adoption that was intended when they first purchased the system. So we're seeing a lot of great use case there. I think with AI is something that we're really excited about over the course of the next couple of quarters. Our mantra is building simple, innovative solutions. And as we introduce AI to the system, it's going to be even easier for all things business development and marketing. So we're super excited. We have a great list of clients. And, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about Project Mark, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, Tom, I look forward to future conversations and staying in touch and wishing you and the team all the best of luck. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared. See ya.